You are listening to part 14 of the 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Gemini. Did you try palming last week?
No, but I did look it up, and I'm prepared to do it. But I just didn't
Okay. So it's still out and about. There's still information about palming available.
There is. There's some good websites out there. I made notes of it when we spoke last week, and I just haven't had a chance to practice it yet, but it looks very interesting. I think sometimes maybe I do it without realizing it, like when you close your eyes and you see all the colors, or you press your palms to your eyes. So I'll have to explore that.
Yes, this is actually quite different, though, and the idea is that the eye should feel, the eye to eyelid should feel no pressure at all, because you're actually cupping your hand so the fingers rest on the forehead and the heel of the hand rests on your cheek, and then the palm of your hand is like a little cup, like an egg would or a little bit of water could be held in it, so that you feel like your eye can fall down into it. And the part we were really focusing on was then that as you do this, you don't look up and out, you look down, and you look down and then slowly up into a sunlit scene, if at all possible. And that although Bates doesn't talk about what goes on with the sunlight, and I didn't realize it then, the more that I learned through John Ott and through Jacob Lieberman about the health-promoting effects of sunlight and getting that sunlight into my eyes and into my brain, the more I went, aha! So I hope that the listeners, too, are taking off their sunglasses. Doesn't mean you have to leave them off all the time. The great thing about most of these things is we're not saying, okay, that's it, you have to go out there and develop cataracts in order to be healthy. Certainly no one would say that. What we're saying is that I'm finding many people who are viewing the sun, both on their eyes and their skin, as something unhealthy. And we need to recognize that it is healthy. It's healthy in small doses, but no doses is as unhealthy as too great a dose. And this leads us into homeopathy, because homeopathy is herbal medicine reduced to its smallest possible dose. Many times when I talk about using herbs and herbal medicine, I set up an idea in which I say, let us imagine a line. And right in the middle of that line, we're going to put a plant. On one side of the line, the plant becomes medicine by being concentrated. And the more concentrated the plant, or the plant part of the plant constituent it is, the stronger and more potentially dangerous the medicine is. On the other side of that line, the plant becomes medicinal by becoming diluted. And the more diluted it becomes, the stronger and more dangerous the remedy becomes. So we have the plant in the middle being concentrated in one direction, diluted in the other direction, but with the same kind of thing happening, in that either dilution or concentration is making it stronger. But as we would somehow imagine, and somehow makes sense, the medicinal effect of that dilution is the opposite of the medicinal effect of the concentration. In fact, that's called the homeopathic proving. So homeopathy is using herbal medicines that are extremely diluted. And in this extremely diluted state, it is said that the plant now acts as a remedy against the effects it would have if it was taken in a poisonous dose. And there are homeopathic homeopathic provings, hundreds and hundreds of them, in which herbalists would make a tincture, which they call a mother tincture, of a specific plant or plant part, and take that in ever-increasing doses, keeping careful note, or having someone else keep careful note if they were passing out from it, of what happened as they got more and more poisoned by the plant. And those would then be the symptoms, the symptoms that the homeopathic remedy counters and cures. I hear the wheels of your brain spinning. I hear everyone's brain wheels going, what? This is a very different way of thinking. We are so used to the stronger is better, that the weaker is better. It's like, what? To most of this, I remember a very poignant story in one of my herbal buddies who was working in a refugee camp in Africa and was using calendula tincture as a disinfectant. And my herbal buddy was watching the level of the calendula tincture going down and down and down and thought, you know what, I'm just going to potentize it. And that's homeopathic shorthand for dilute it. And potentize is dilute and pertuss. So to make a homeopathic remedy, we take that mother tincture of the plant. It's the same mother tincture that I would use. Somebody says, I need some motherwort. I would get out my motherwort tincture. The homeopath would take that motherwort tincture and would dilute it and would then pertuss it by striking the bottle against a leather-covered surface. So the remedy is diluted and pertussed and diluted and pertussed. And my herbal buddy diluted what was left of the calendula tincture and shook it up really, really well. And again, watched as the calendula tincture seemed to melt away so many useful things for a disinfectant. So many wounds that needed to be helped. So many instruments. That was the only disinfectant that they had. And once again, my herbal buddy said, I'm just going to have to potentize it again, and diluted it yet again by adding, of course, water or alcohol, whatever was on hand, and then shaking it really, 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 really well. And by the time this had been done a third time, there were other people on staff coming to my herbal buddy and saying, this new batch of calendula tincture seems to be a lot stronger than the previous batches. This is where the homeopaths are coming from. They're saying that when you dilute a plant, you get more of its vibration and less of its physical stuff. And the more you dilute it, the more that vibration is free to work. The more you have not what we would call the essence of the plant, but the more you have the vibration of the plant. And there is a very big difference between them, as we will see when we start to talk about flower essences, which are completely different than homeopathic remedies and don't really partake of the same mindset, of the same understanding. Of course, we can't talk about homeopathy without a tip of the hat to Samuel Hahnemann. It's his brainchild. It's his baby. And I often quote Samuel Hahnemann from his personal journal in which he says, I gave my wife a very high-potency remedy some months ago, and I fear that I may have ruined her health forever. When you go to the store to buy homeopathic remedies, they're usually 10x. That means they've been diluted and pertussed 10 times, although you could also get 30x. Means it's been pertussed and diluted 30 times, or even 100x. But homeopathic remedies go up from there. They go into the C's. 1C is 100 dilution. 2C, 5C, 10C would, of course, be 1,000 dilution. And there are M dilutions, 1, 2, 3, and 4 million dilutions. When I take homeopathic remedies, I will indeed admit that I generally do take million dilutions, because if I'm going to work in a system where the vibration is improved and made clearer by being diluted, then I want it about as diluted as you are willing to give it to me. And yes, indeed, I can sometimes have extremely strong reactions to those very high potency dilutions, and it's one of the reasons why it's 10x, 30x, and 1C that are sold for at-home consumption. Many people think of homeopathy as placebos. It is certainly true. If you were to take a homeopathic remedy into a lab and look at it, what you would find is it is a completely inert ingredient. In fact, there's not even a single molecule of the herb left, even at a 10x dilution. We have, however, been talking about intention and awareness, and what happens when we bring an intention and awareness to the remedy that we are creating. And we're going to end this month by talking about what happens when we collaborate with the intelligences of plants to make our remedies. In a way, homeopathy foreshadows what's being done now, and yet what's being done now is a revival of very, very old ideas and techniques, many of which seemed to be quite lost to us, in which perhaps Samuel Hahnemann was in some way picking up from his dreams or his ancestry. He does talk a lot and have a whole series of homeopathic remedies called no-sodes, which are to remedy the ills of your ancestors, which in homeopathy are still thought to vibrate within your body and to have an impact on your health and your well-being, as well as have an impact on your story. Now, I will admit that one of the reasons I was drawn to study homeopathy, and never completed my studies as a homeopath, too much indoor work, but one of the reasons I was drawn to it is that this is a healing way that cherishes story. The homeopathic intake interview is supposed to last for hours. We want to hear everything about everything that has ever gone on with you, good, bad, things that have hurt you, things that have made you say, life is wonderful. We want to know the specifics. People say, oh, I have a digestive pain. The homeopath would say, exactly what part of your body is that pain in? Please describe the pain to me. Is the pain worse in the morning or worse in the evening? Is the pain worse before eating or worse after eating? It's a whole long series of things. We really want to know the details. We want to know the story when we're functioning as homeopaths. And that, because I'm really into story, was something that really pulled me into it. Homeopathic medicine is, to me, one of the classics of the third river of healing. Call it what you will. Call it mind medicine, call it placebo medicine, call it vibration medicine, call it faith medicine. Homeopathy works. And as we said, when we started talking about the third medicine, in general, these medicines work to help about half of the people. And I am all for helping half of the people, even if what I'm doing is just pretending. After all, this is the realm of imagination. This is the realm of pretense. Flower essences, as I said, are quite different from homeopathy. A flower essence is not made by diluting. It is generally made by taking a flower and by floating it in water and exposing that flower in the water to sunlight, and in some cases to moonlight. And I have also known people to make flower essences by putting a pane of glass over a bowl of water and then the flower on the pane of glass, so that only the rays of light that are passing through the flower and the glass go into the water, because they don't want the actual physical stuff of the flower in the water at all. A very interesting take on making a flower essence. Now, the word essence to most of us speaks to something that is essential. Same root, essence and essential. So we think of the flower essence as being something that is essential to the plant, and yet in many ways nothing could be further from the truth. The flower of the plant is not necessarily the essential part of the plant. In fact, the flower of the plant is a plant part that is designed to be the shortest lived. The plant may have a long-lived root. Some plants may have roots that live for years, decades, even centuries. The stalk and the leaves are designed to be around for weeks, months, again, sometimes years. But the flower is designed to open, do its business, and then die. Often in a period of hours, rarely longer than for days, although occasionally for weeks. So the flower is not the essence of the plant. It is, in fact, the sexual parts of the plant. It is the sexual organs of the plant. They're surrounded by pretty petals. Those pretty petals really are to attract the pollinators, and when the pollinators help to complete the sexual exchange for the plant, then the flower is not needed, and off it goes. You're left behind with a fertilized ovary, which produces babies known as seeds, the next generation of plants. So what are we really doing when we're making a flower essence? We are soaking the sexual parts of plants in water. We are soaking the parts of the plants that are generative, the part that produces pollen, the male part. The pollen is very much like sperm. It carries the male genetic materials to the female part of the flower, which has, among its other parts, ovaries, just like human women. So the male part of the plant makes pollen. The pollen somehow gets to connect with the egg that is in the ovary, and a seed is produced right there. When we are using a flower, we are using the short-lived sexual apparatus of the plant. Now, you can tell that I'm a pretty straightforward person, and I have a very odd sense of humor. So I can but imagine what the sexual parts of a plant soaked in water in the sunlight would be saying to me. And what I imagine is they're saying to me, get me some. I want more. I'll fertilize the world. Come and get it, baby. Hoo-ha. Hot stuff here. World peace? Healing? I don't think so. Not that sexual behavior is unhealing or that it's against world peace. I'm certainly not saying that. I'm simply saying that the sexual organs of the plant are not out to create world peace. We're going to be talking about plant intelligence. We're going to be talking about talking with plants. And we're going to see what the difference is between actually hearing what it is that the plant has to say to us and projecting what we want or what we think or what we perceive on the plant. It is a very different thing. We touched on this very lightly when we talked about the work being done on Japan with looking at ice crystals that were formed when certain words were written on them, and how I said that it was not so much the writing of the word as it was the intention, or we could say the vibration that was set up for that. So a flower essence certainly may carry a vibration, but it does not carry the essence of the plant itself. It carries a very tiny fraction of what the plant is about. And I would say that 99% of what I've read, what people have written about flower essences, is purely and simply their own projection onto the plant. I remember years and years ago, one of the very first books that came out about flower essences, and it was supposedly channeled through an angel. And so an angel, we're talking like maybe 35, 40 years ago, and this angel was saying that we should take the pure, unsullied blossoms of the plants and soak them in water and let the pure light of the sun shine upon them, and that we would then have these absolutely etherical and vibrational remedies that we could use. And so right away I was a little, whoa, these are the sexual parts of the plant. This is not necessarily, pure and unsullied here. But we'll just let that pass. But the angel then proceeded to say that it would be good to make a flower essence of goldenrod because so many people are allergic to it, and the flower essence of goldenrod could help people who were allergic. And I admit to shutting the book right then and laughing, because it is true that a great many people think that goldenrod causes allergies late in the year. But the fact of the matter is that goldenrod is a plant with pretty flowers because it's insect-pollinated. And insect-pollinated plants don't cause allergies. The plant that causes the allergy, that blooms at the same time that the goldenrod is blooming, is ragweed. Ragweed, being wind-pollinated, is thus capable of causing allergies. And because it's wind-pollinated, it doesn't have pretty flowers. It doesn't have colored flowers. It has little green flowers. It doesn't need to attract any attention. Remember that the flower is like the sexy gown and the makeup. It's the hoo-ha, come and get it here stuff. That flower really has very little to do with the plant or what the plant is truly expressing. So I thought even an angel has bought into the myth that goldenrod causes allergies and doesn't know that it's ragweed. And then when I thought about it, I thought, and how interesting that this angel is saying that the flower essence would work like a homeopathic remedy. And so I saw that this was kind of an interesting leap into a new thing. And for many, many years, Gemini, I never felt it necessary to say anything at all about flower essences. I especially liked the flower essences of Bach in England. And his flower essences came out of his great compassionate heart for children. And were very lovely and sold in these tiny little vials. And those were the mother essences, and then you diluted that to use it, and it really was just his very beautiful projections onto these flowers and plants. But soon it became not just the flower essences of Bach, but the flower essences of England, and then the flower essences of the holy wells of England, and then the flower essences of the well at this particular place, and then the flower essences of the roses that grow at the well at this particular place. And I thought, stop already. We're talking mind medicine here, just like we were, and we talked about it before. We don't need to make a flower essence and project onto it any intention. We can simply project that intention into anything and call it anything we want. That works just fine. And of course, furthermore, as an herbalist, I always say, flower essences are saying that they're the spirit of the plant. I'm not saying that they are, and I don't believe that they are, but if we have to imbibe the spirit of the plant separately from the physical reality of the plant, aren't we adding to the great sickness that lies upon this planet, which is the belief that spirit and matter are different, and that spirit is holy and good and matter is junk? No. Herbal medicine is about the spirit and the form being together, and we'll talk about that more, as I said, when we do our last show of the month and talk about plant intelligence and how plant intelligence is part of vibrational medicine. flower essences are really not that different from gemstone elixirs. A gemstone elixir can be made in exactly the same way by taking a gemstone and putting it in water and putting it in sunlight or moonlight, or putting the gemstone on a clear glass slide and putting it over water and letting the sun shine through it. Again, my rather odd sense of humor, am always laughing at people who put their stones out into the sun, because if we think about it, where are stones found? Where are crystals found? Where are gemstones found? They are found underground. And so I wonder if cleansing crystals by putting them in the sunlight, or cleansing crystals by washing them, or gemstones or so on, I wonder if that destroys the vibrational frequency of these things, which gathered and became the physical form of the vibrational frequencies of deep earth, where there isn't that kind of running water, where the sun doesn't shine. That these gemstones come to us bearing these special vibrational energies that are only possible when they can grow in the absence of water, in the absence of sunlight, the energies of earth and fire. Very different way of thinking about the stones and the gemstone elixirs. Gemstones don't have to be made into elixir. They, too, can be used as part of vibrational healing. I remember a friend of mine who was a massage therapist, and she had started doing a little study about gemstones and their vibrational qualities, and she wanted to know if she could experiment on me. And I said, sure, experiment away, no problem. And so she laid a line of gemstones up the main chakra channel, the conception vessel, as you were in acupuncture, and began to do some Reiki. And she said she often does Reiki before she gets into the massage, and she wanted to see how it would go with the stones. And neither of us were quite prepared for what happened, because as she began to let the energy, the life force energy of the entire universe, pour through her hands, and I opened up to it pouring through me, the gemstones that she had laid on my body began to shake and to vibrate. Some of them began to jump like popcorn, and one rather large quartz crystal with a pop broke. Is it all in our minds, or are vibrations real? The third medicine is a fascinating medicine. You remember I said at the very beginning when we were talking about these medicines that I often found that people would go to one medicine and try many different techniques within that one medicine and then say, well, I guess I have to take drugs because none of this other stuff works. So let's be aware when we're here that all of these medicines that I'm talking about are really one medicine. They're vibrational medicine. And I think we've come to the end of our show for this show, have we, Gemini?
We have, indeed.
Indeed. Well, we'll be back next week and looking at affirmations, visualizations, prayers, spells, talismans, rituals, ceremonies. We see this river goes on and on. Green blessings, Gemini.
Thank you, Susan. This concludes part 14 of our discussion on the 7 medicines, the Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.